Hello friends, James Stephenson, back with a special report on how Tesla is doing versus Ford and General Motors. So Tesla reported their earnings first a couple of weeks ago, and then over the most recent week, GM and then Ford also announced their earnings. And they were happy to say that their deliveries and their revenue are up year over year. So they're really proud about that increase year over year growth, right? So, how proud should they be? Let's go back and examine more than just this year and last year. Let's take in a wider view of how all three of these companies are doing over the past 6 years and see if that trend helps to inform our perception of how good it is that Ford and GM are up year over year. So I'm going to share my desktop with you after we check in with Loki. There's Loki in his bed, snoozing and relaxing with his stuffed animals. All right. You can keep an eye on him with the Loki cam right underneath me in this view. Okay, so what are we looking at here? This is the section that I'm using to show units. So I'm labeling Ford as wholesale and GM as wholesale and Tesla as retail. Why is that? Because Tesla sells cars directly to the end customer, while GM and Ford don't. Who do they sell to? They sell to Ford and GM dealerships. And then it becomes those dealerships' problem to have to get rid of those cars, right? Okay, so Ford and GM both report deliveries differently. They report a few different ways. So I'm just specifying, hey, I'm only counting the sales that best match up with the revenue. Ford and GM both tell you in their earnings releases, hey, if you want to compare our revenue against something, compare it against our wholesale unit deliveries, because that's going to match up best with our revenue, because that's where our revenue is coming from. It's coming from the dealerships who are buying cars from us. All right, so we've got numbers in a table here. You can see these are declining over the years. Even without a chart, you can tell those are coming down. For both Ford and GM, back in 2016, they were each selling more than 6 million cars per year, back when Tesla wasn't even selling 0.1 million cars per year. That 76 is 76,000 vehicles. And these 6,000s here are really 6.6 million, 6.2 million, right? So those have been coming down since year after year. Now, when you look at 2021, this was the chip shortage year. Those were quotation fingers for those of you who are audio-only listeners. Ford had a bad year, GM had a bad year last year, and they're both up since. Now, what I'm using here to be a fair comparison, to be a full year, is the 12 trailing months. TTM is trailing 12 months or 12 trailing months. Doesn't matter which order you say those in, they mean the same thing. We're talking about the most recent year worth of results. In this case, 12 trailing months Q3 means Q4 of 2021 plus Q1, Q2, and Q3 of 2022. That's a very standard way of making sure your numbers adjust themselves automatically for seasonality. If your best quarter was Q4, you wouldn't want to leave that out by showing a year-to-date Q3 number that didn't have any Q4s in it, right? So that's what I'm showing for these comparisons. And here's where you can see those decreases. These red numbers in parentheses are declines. And every year since 2016, Ford and GM both have seen declining unit sales as they idle factories, as they discontinue production of a lot of passenger car models, as they try to focus more on pickup trucks and SUVs that have higher profit margins and higher ASPs. That's been their strategy, is to cut loose the lower profit passenger cars and let their competitors fight over that very low opportunity segment of the market and focus more on selling trucks and SUVs they can make more money on. All right, so these are the percentage declines year over year, and then I've done something kind of fun at the bottom. I've given the total change from 2016 to 2022, 12 trailing months Q3. So what are these formulas doing? They're taking the most recent year worth of actuals for Ford, GM, and Tesla, and they're subtracting the 2016 totals from that. So Ford is down 2.5 million, GM is down 2.9 million units, and Tesla is up 1.1 million vehicles. So a really big difference there. I've also got the percentages over here. So that's a 37% decline since 2016 for Ford, a 46% decline for GM, and a 1,504% increase for Tesla. All right, those are the units. Then we have the revenue. I'm not going to talk you through the revenue. And then we have the net income. I'm not going to talk you through that either, because what I've done below is chart these. So let's go to this first one. So this one is the global deliveries, the one that I walked through in detail. And this shows you what this looks like on a chart. So you can really see those declines happening. And then these are the revenue increases that GM and Ford were so happy about, telling you, hey, we're up in unit deliveries versus 2021. We have year-over-year growth. Well, yeah, you have a little bit of year-over-year growth following 5 years of declines. Both of you, right, have a little growth bouncing off of the bottom, which was 2021, when those chip shortages you were telling everybody were the reason why you weren't selling more than this, right? So is it really growth? I mean, yeah, I guess it is, but so that's what the global deliveries look like. Here's Tesla over here. Tesla every year sells more vehicles than they sold the year before globally at retail. So that's the better business to be in if you can figure out how to cut out the dealerships, and Tesla did. Okay, next is revenue chart. Here's what the revenue did. This is interesting. You would think the revenue would fall with the units sold, but because they're selling less of the low ASP passenger vehicles and more of the higher ASP trucks and SUVs that they've been raising prices on, even though the unit numbers are down, the revenue, yeah, it has fallen some, and it's come back to pretty much the same level as it was in 2016, even selling more than 2 million fewer vehicles. Both Ford and GM have figured out how to make almost as much revenue in 2022 over the 12 trailing months as they made back in 2016, even though they're selling 2 million less vehicles, more than that. 5 million combined for the two of them. And here's the trend from Tesla. Tesla's unit sales are up. Folks, Tesla sells 4 models. Tesla sells 4 models. Do you know how many models Ford and GM sell? Dozens. They each sell dozens of models. And look at this revenue, right? Tesla's about to enter the pickup market for the first time with Cybertruck next year. So if they can scale up that business, I think a lot of people are going to be interested in buying a Cybertruck. And then Tesla Semi is coming, and there is a future product pipeline that Elon says he will be able to sell more of, a smaller vehicle than all of these combined. So that'll be interesting to look forward to. And here's the net income chart. So what's the net income doing? Well, it's all over the place. So Ford had this one really big year. That includes $9.1 billion worth of a gain on the IPO of Rivian that Ford had invested in. So they had to declare a $9.1 billion gain. Without that, this number would have been, 8 billion-ish. So a little under 10 here. And if that had been the case, then this number from Tesla would be the tallest bar on the page. So Tesla used to lose money, and that is not true anymore. Every year for the past, 3 years, Tesla's been showing big net income improvements. And you gotta like the trend here from Tesla if you're a Tesla investor. Alright, so that's those charts. The other kind of chart that I made out of this was just to compare the 22 Q3 versus the 2016 totals. So this one is wholesale unit deliveries. Tesla's up 1.1 million. Ford and GM are both down more than 2 million. Revenue growth. Tesla is up $67,863,000,000 since 2016. Ford is down $64 million. GM is down $1,973,000,000. And then I did make the chart for net income, but I put it down here. So for net income, Ford is up $4.4 billion. GM is down $800 million over the most recent year versus 2016. And Tesla is up $11,865,000,000. So I did put those into a thread on Twitter, which I will link in the video description. Let me scroll up here to get to the top. So yeah, Ford and GM sold only 7.5 million vehicles combined over the past year. Back in 2016, that number was almost 13 million. So that's where I put those charts. You can find them on Twitter if you want. I will leave a link in the video description. And that is my video for today. So if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, you could go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you value the content that I'm putting out and feel like you want to support my efforts, there's links in the video description to Patreon or to join my YouTube channel and show your support. And I'd like to thank my executive producer, Kathy Kitchler, as always, and I'll see you in the next one.